The silver blade pressed against Sarah's throat as the pack healer delivered her death sentence. Barren, cursed, unfit to bear the next generation. But what terrified her more than the blade was the cruel smile spreading across her mate's face. She'd seen that smile before, when Marcus had courted her with wildflowers and whispered promises, when he'd marked her beneath the harvest moon, when he'd sworn she was his forever. Forever had lasted exactly 2 years. "You lied to me." Marcus's voice carried across the clearing, reaching every member of the Silvermoon pack, gathered for the full moon assembly. 2 years, Sarah. 2 years of my seed, wasted on a defective Omega. The pack healer, old Margot with her twisted fingers and bitter mouth, tightened her grip on Sarah's hair. "The moon reveals all truths. This one's womb is cold, dead. She'll never carry a pup." Sarah's wolf whimpered inside her, a broken sound that matched the shattering of her heart. "I didn't know, Marcus, please, I didn't—" "Silence." Alpha Thorn's command cracked like a whip. He stood beside the ceremonial fire, his face carved from stone. "The law is clear. A barren she-wolf brings misfortune to the pack. She is a drain on resources, a mockery of the moon goddess's gifts." "I can still hunt," Sarah whispered, though she knew it was useless. "I can still serve. You can still spread your curse." That came from her mother, standing in the crowd with Sarah's father's hand on her shoulder. Margaret's face was pale, but her eyes were hard. "We raised a daughter, not a monster. The goddess has turned her face from you." The words hit harder than any physical blow. Sarah had always been close to her parents, had believed their love was unconditional, but as she looked at her mother now, she saw only shame and fear. "The casting out will commence." Alpha Thorn gestured to the warriors flanking the clearing. "Strip her of her pack bonds. Let the forest take what we cannot keep." Marcus stepped forward, and for one desperate heartbeat, Sarah thought he might defend her. Instead, he grabbed the mate mark on her neck, his mark burned into her skin 2 years ago, and spoke the words that would sever their bond. "I, Marcus Cole of the Silvermoon Pack, reject you, Sarah Winters, as my mate and my burden." The pain was immediate and absolute. It felt like someone had reached into her chest and yanked out her heart while it was still beating. Sarah collapsed to her knees, a scream tearing from her throat. The mate bond, that golden thread that had connected her to Marcus, snapped with an almost audible crack. Through the haze of agony, she felt hands on her, warriors dragging her to her feet. Someone cut away her pack pendant, the silver wolf charm her father had given her on her 16th birthday. Another warrior slashed through the ceremonial dress she'd worn for tonight's gathering, leaving her in nothing but her thin undergarments. 3 minutes, Alpha Thorn announced. "If you're still on Silvermoon territory after that, we hunt you as an intruder. Run, little Omega, run fast." They shoved her toward the forest edge. Sarah stumbled, her legs shaking, her body still screaming from the rejection. Behind her, she heard Marcus laugh, that same warm laugh that used to make her smile. "Pathetic," he said. "I can't believe I wasted 2 years on damaged goods." Something inside Sarah broke then, something that had nothing to do with her womb or her wolf. She ran. Branches tore at her skin. Rocks cut her bare feet. She couldn't shift. The rejection had left her wolf too wounded, too weak. All she could do was run on human legs through the darkness, blood streaming from a dozen cuts, her breath coming in ragged sobs. Behind her, she heard the howls begin. The hunt. They'd given her 3 minutes, but this was a game to them now. Entertainment, the barren Omega fleeing for her worthless life. Sarah pushed harder, deeper into the forest, away from everything she'd ever known, away from the pack that had raised her and then thrown her away like garbage, away from the mate who'd promised forever and delivered 3 minutes. She didn't know how long she ran. Time became meaningless, measured only in gasping breaths and the burning in her lungs. The howls grew distant, then faded entirely. The Silvermoon warriors had stopped at their border, as tradition demanded. The rogue lands beyond were considered punishment enough. No wolf survived long in rogue territory. Sarah's legs finally gave out near a stream. She collapsed face first into the shallow water, too exhausted to even lift her head. The cold shocked her system, but she couldn't move, couldn't think, could barely breathe. This was it then. This was how she'd die. Alone, broken, worthless, just like they'd said. I'm sorry, she thought, to no one in particular, to the moon goddess who'd cursed her, to her wolf, who deserved better, to the pups she'd never carry. I'm so sorry. The darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. Part of her welcomed it. At least in death she wouldn't have to feel the shame anymore. Then she felt it. A presence. 2 presences. Powerful enough to make the air itself feel heavy. Sarah tried to lift her head, but her body wouldn't obey. Through the water's surface, distorted and dreamlike, she saw 2 pairs of eyes. Golden eyes, burning like small suns in the darkness. Someone lifted her from the stream, strong hands, surprisingly gentle. A deep voice, smooth as aged whiskey, rumbled above her. Well, well, what do we have here? A second voice answered, nearly identical to the first, but with a darker edge. Bloodied, beaten, smells like rejection and broken bonds. A pause. She's from Silvermoon. Is she now? The first voice hummed with interest. And what's Thorn throwing away this time? She doesn't look like a criminal. She's barren. The second voice stated it flatly, as if reading a fact, rather than delivering a death sentence. I can smell it on her. The pack cast her out. Sarah wanted to speak, to beg them for a quick death, but her voice had abandoned her along with everything else. Barren, the first voice repeated, and Sarah felt fingers brush gently through her matted hair. How interesting. What do you think, brother? Should we keep her? We haven't added to the collection in months. The second voice moved closer, and she's still breathing. That shows some fight. Some fight. The first voice agreed. I like fight. Through her fading consciousness, Sarah tried to understand what was happening. Collection? Keep her? These had to be the twin Alpha Kings, Damon and Dante Blackthorn. She'd heard the stories. Everyone had. They ruled the Shadow Ridge pack with iron fists and collected wolves that other packs had discarded. Criminals, rogues, broken warriors. No one knew why. No one who'd gone to Shadow Ridge had ever come back to tell the tale. Please, Sarah managed to whisper, finding her voice for just a moment. Just let me die. Let you die. The first voice, Damon, she thought, sounded genuinely surprised. Now why would we do that? We don't waste good wolves. The second voice, Dante, added, even broken ones. Especially broken ones, Damon corrected. They're so much more interesting to fix. Sarah felt herself being lifted, cradled against a broad chest. The movement should have hurt, but instead she felt warm, safe. 2 sensations she had no right to feel anymore. Welcome to Shadow Ridge, little Omega, Damon murmured against her hair. Your old life just ended. Let's see what we can make of your new one. As consciousness finally slipped away, Sarah's last thought was that maybe she hadn't escaped death after all. Maybe she'd just traded one nightmare for another. but the arms holding her were gentle, and for the first time in 2 years, her wolf stirred with something that wasn't pain. It felt almost like hope. Almost. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. Sarah woke to silk. The sensation was so foreign, so completely wrong, that for a moment she thought she was still unconscious and dreaming. Her fingers moved across sheets softer than anything she'd ever touched, and beneath her body, the mattress cradled her like a cloud. This wasn't death. Death wouldn't feel this comfortable. She opened her eyes to find herself in a bedroom that belonged in a palace, not a pack house. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a forest bathed in early morning light. The walls were a deep charcoal gray, decorated with silver accents that caught the sun. A fireplace crackled in the corner, and the scent of cedar and something darker, something wild, filled the air. Sarah sat up slowly, expecting pain. Her body had been shredded last night, torn apart by branches and rocks and rejection. But when she looked down at her arms, she found smooth skin, no cuts, no bruises. Even the deep gashes on her feet had vanished completely. What? Her voice came out rusty, uncertain. Impressive, isn't it? The voice came from the doorway, smooth and cultured. Our pack healer is worth her weight in gold. Literally, we pay her that much. Sarah's head snapped toward the speaker, and her breath caught. He stood framed in the doorway like a portrait of dark beauty, tall and powerfully built, with black hair that fell to his shoulders and eyes that burned gold even in the daylight. He wore tailored black pants and a dark gray shirt that probably cost more than everything Sarah had ever owned combined. Everything about him screamed control, from his precise posture to the calculating way he studied her. "Damon," she whispered, remembering the voice from last night. "Very good." He stepped into the room with the fluid grace of a predator. "You're sharper than you look. I appreciate that in a wolf." "Where?" "Shadow Ridge Palace, the West Wing, 3rd floor, royal suite." He moved to a chair near the window and sat with deliberate ease. "You've been unconscious for 14 hours. Your body needed time to heal, and our healer needed time to work. The rejection damage was extensive." Sarah's hand moved unconsciously to her neck, to the place where Marcus's mark had been. The skin was smooth now, unmarked, as if he'd never touched her at all. "Why?" The question came out smaller than she intended. "Why heal me? Why bring me here?" "Because we want something from you." A second voice, nearly identical to the first but rougher around the edges, came from the balcony. Sarah hadn't noticed the doors were open. "And we always get what we want." The second twin stepped inside, and Sarah's wolf stirred uneasily. Where Damon was controlled precision, this one was barely contained chaos. He wore similar clothes, black on black, but his shirt was unbuttoned at the throat, and his hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes held the same golden fire as his brother's, but where Damon's gaze was calculating, this one's burned with raw intensity. "Dante," Damon said without looking at his brother, "you're frightening her." "Good. Fear keeps wolves honest." Dante prowled closer, circling the bed like she was prey he was considering. "Tell me, little Omega, do you know who we are?" "The twin alpha kings of Shadow Ridge." Sarah pulled the silk sheets higher. Suddenly aware she was wearing a soft cotton nightgown she definitely hadn't put on herself. "The stories say you're ruthless, that you collect broken wolves and they disappear into your pack, never to be seen again." "The stories are correct." Damon's voice held a note of approval. "We do collect broken wolves, We find them far more useful than the perfect polished ones. Perfect wolves break under pressure. Broken wolves, they've already survived the worst. They're stronger than they know. Is that what I am? Sarah's voice shook despite her best efforts. Part of your collection? You could be. Dante stopped his circling, standing at the foot of the bed with his arms crossed. If you're smart enough to accept our offer. What offer? The twins exchanged a look, something passing between them that Sarah couldn't read. Then Damon leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his expression serious. We want you to be our mate, he said simply. Our Luna Queen. You would rule Shatteridge at our side, bear our mark, and be bound to us for life. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Sarah stared at them, waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, she laughed, a harsh, broken sound. That's not funny. We're not joking. Dante's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. I'm barren. Sarah threw the word at them like a weapon. Cursed, worthless. Your pack would never accept an infertile Luna. You need heirs, and I can't. We don't need you to give us heirs, Damon interrupted, his tone so cold it made her shiver. We need you to break a curse. Silence fell over the room, heavy and suffocating. What? Sarah whispered. Dante moved around the bed, dropping into a chair on the opposite side from his brother. Our pack has been cursed for 3 generations. Every Alpha King's mate has died during childbirth. Every single one. And no pup, no heir, has survived past their first breath. Our father watched our mother die. Damon continued, his voice devoid of emotion. Our grandfather before him, and his father before that. The Blackthorn line is dying, Sarah. Not from battle or disease, but from this curse that kills every mate who tries to bear our children. Sarah's mind raced. But your twins, your mother, died the moment we took our first breaths. Dante's jaw clenched. Our father raised us alone, broken and bitter. He never took another mate. The guilt destroyed him. When we took over the pack 8 years ago, we swore we'd never put a female through that. Never watch another mate die. We've searched for answers for years, Damon said. Consulted witches, healers, seers. Most said the curse was unbreakable. But then 2 years ago, one of the old pack elders, a seer on her deathbed, gave us a prophecy. He stood and moved to the window, his back to Sarah. When he spoke again, his voice was distant, reciting words he'd clearly memorized. The barren moon blessed shall break what birth has wrought. She who cannot create life shall save the life of those who can. Only through her can the blood curse end. Moon blessed, Sarah repeated, her throat tight. But I'm cursed, the pack healer said. Your pack healer is an ignorant fool. Dante's voice was sharp with contempt. You're not cursed, Omega. You're blessed. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, no matter what small-minded wolves believe. We've been watching your pack for months. Damon turned from the window, waiting. When our scouts reported that Thorn's pack had an infertile Omega, we knew. We had to be sure, so we waited to see what would happen, and when they cast you out. He smiled, cold and satisfied. We were there to catch you. Sarah's head spun. This was too much, too fast. You can't be serious. A shared mate bond. That's rare, but not unheard of. Damon returned to his chair. Twin alphas have shared Lunas before. It's in our nature, our blood. We're 2 halves of one whole. What we want together. And we want you. Dante's golden eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Not for your womb, not for heirs, but for your gift. The gift your old pack was too blind to see. I don't have a gift, Sarah protested, her voice rising. I have nothing. I'm nothing. You're everything we need. Damon's voice softened slightly, the first hint of something beyond cold calculation. Accept our mark, Sarah. Become our Luna. Help us break this curse so that someday, when the time is right, we can build a family without fear. And if I refuse? Sarah's hands twisted in the silk sheets. What then? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Then we return you to the rogue lands, Dante said quietly. Give you supplies, a weapon, a fighting chance. We don't force bonds, Omega. But you won't survive out there alone. You know it, and so do we. Stay and live as a queen, Damon added, or leave and die as a rogue. The choice is yours. It wasn't really a choice. Sarah knew that. They knew that. But something in her rebelled against being cornered, against being used again, even if this time it was for a supposedly noble purpose. How do you know the prophecy is even real? She looked between them, searching for doubt and finding none. How do you know I'm the one? What if your seer was wrong? We don't know, Damon admitted. Not for certain, but every other lead has been a dead end. You're our last hope, Sarah, our only hope. And if it doesn't work, if I can't break the curse, then at least you'll have lived as a Luna instead of dying as a rogue. Dante's smile was sharp-edged. We're offering you purpose, protection, power. Whatever your old pack told you, whatever lies they fed you, forget them. Here, you matter. Here, you're needed. Sarah wanted to refuse, wanted to tell them to go to hell, that she wasn't some magical solution to their problems. But the alternative was death, slow and painful in the rogue lands, and something deep inside her, something that had been silent since the rejection, stirred at their words. You matter. You're needed. When had she last heard those words? When had she last felt anything but shame? I need time, she said finally, to think, to understand what you're asking. You have until tomorrow night. Damon stood, smooth and graceful. The full moon, if you accept, we'll perform the marking ceremony then. If not, he shrugged. We'll say goodbye and wish you luck. Someone will bring you food and clothes, Dante added, moving toward the door. The palace is open to you. Explore. Talk to our pack members. See what kind of wolves we really are. They both headed for the door, moving in perfect sync, so similar yet so different. Wait, Sarah called out, stopping them at the threshold. Why should I trust you? How do I know this isn't all some elaborate game? Damon looked back, his expression unreadable. You don't. Trust has to be earned. We know that better than anyone. But unlike your old pack, Dante's voice was rough with suppressed anger, we don't lie to our wolves. What you see is what you get. Make your choice, Omega. Choose wisely. They left, closing the door softly behind them. Sarah sat in the massive bed, surrounded by silk and luxury, and tried to process everything. A curse, a prophecy, twin alpha kings who wanted her not despite her barrenness, but because of it. It sounded insane. It sounded impossible. It sounded like hope, and that terrified her most of all. She was still sitting there, lost in thought, when the door opened again an hour later. Sarah tensed, expecting the twins, but instead a woman entered, tall and muscular, with auburn hair pulled into a practical braid and sharp green eyes that assessed Sarah in one quick sweep. So you're the barren moon-blessed, the woman said, her tone neutral. She carried a tray of food that smelled incredible. I'm Lisa, beta female, head warrior, and the twins' oldest friend. Friend? Sarah seized on the word, desperate for information from someone who might actually give her honest answers. Known them since we were pups. Lisa set the tray on the bedside table. watched their mother die, watched their father fall apart, watched them build this pack from broken pieces into something strong. She paused, studying Sarah with those sharp eyes. Now I'm watching them put all their faith in you. I don't understand why, Sarah admitted. This prophecy could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe. Lisa moved to the window, her posture rigid. But they're desperate, and desperate wolves make dangerous choices. Something in her tone made Sarah's skin prickle. What do you mean? Lisa was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the forest beyond. When she spoke, her voice was low, urgent. The twins are good alphas, strong, fair, protective of their pack. But they're hiding something about this curse, Sarah. Something they haven't told you. I've known them my whole life, and I can tell when they're keeping secrets. What kind of secrets? Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. I don't know exactly. Lisa finally turned to face her. But I've seen them meeting with that seer's descendants, late at night, in the old ritual chamber beneath the palace, and whatever they discuss down there. She shook her head. They come back changed, darker, more obsessed. Why are you telling me this? Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Because I care about them, and I care about this pack. Lisa's expression was fierce, protective. If you're going to be our Luna, you need to go into this with your eyes open. The twins might be using you for more than just breaking a curse. And if you're not careful, you might end up as broken as the rest of us. She moved toward the door, then paused, looking back. Tomorrow night is the full moon. Whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice, not theirs. And if you do accept their mark. Lisa's green eyes held a warning. Watch your back. The curse isn't the only danger in this palace. Then she was gone, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts, her fears, and a choice that suddenly felt a lot more complicated than life or death. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. Sarah spent 3 days in a beautiful prison, weighing her impossible choice. The twins gave her space but made their presence known. Meals appeared at regular intervals, each more elaborate than the last. Clothes filled the wardrobe, soft sweaters, practical pants, even elegant dresses she couldn't imagine wearing. Everything fit perfectly, as if they'd studied her body while she slept. The thought should have disturbed her. Instead, it made her feel seen in a way she'd never experienced with Marcus. On the second day, she explored the palace. Shatteridge was nothing like the Silvermoon pack house. Where her old home had been rustic and communal, this was a fortress of dark stone and soaring ceilings, with modern luxuries woven seamlessly into ancient architecture. Pack members nodded respectfully as she passed, their eyes curious but not cruel. No one whispered barren or cursed behind her back. No one looked at her with pity or disgust. It was disorienting, this absence of shame. On the third day, she made her decision, not because she believed in prophecies or curses, but because the alternative was dying alone in the forest. At least here, she had purpose. At least here, she mattered to someone, even if only as a means to an end. She found the twins in what Lisa had called the strategy room, a circular chamber lined with maps and battle plans. They looked up simultaneously as she entered, 2 pairs of golden eyes locking onto her with identical intensity. "I'll do it," Sarah said before she could lose her nerve. "But I want a trial period first, 3 months before the permanent marking. If the curse doesn't break, or if this doesn't work, I want the option to leave without being hunted." Damon and Dante exchanged one of their wordless communications. Then Damon nodded slowly. "Acceptable. We'll perform a preliminary marking ceremony tonight, enough to bind you to the pack and begin the process, but not the final blood bond. You'll be our Luna in title and practice, but you can still walk away. If you want to," Dante added, his voice carrying a challenge, "though I don't think you will." "Confident," Sarah shot back, surprising herself with the edge in her tone. Dante's smile was sharp and approving. Always. The hours before the ceremony passed in a blur. Lisa appeared with a dress, midnight blue silk that hugged Sarah's curves and fell to her ankles in elegant folds. "The twins chose it," she said, her expression unreadable. "They have good taste. I'll give them that." "Lisa," Sarah caught her arm before she could leave. "What you said before, about them hiding something. Forget I said anything." Lisa's voice was flat, final. "You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. We all do." She left before Sarah could press further, and soon other pack members arrived. A woman to style her hair, another to apply subtle makeup, a third to explain the ceremony's significance. Their touch was gentle, their voices kind, but Sarah felt like a doll being prepared for display. When the sun finally set, Dante came to escort her to the ceremony grounds. He looked devastating in all black, his hair pulled back to reveal the strong lines of his face. When his eyes met hers, something flickered there. Heat and possessiveness and something softer she couldn't name. "You're beautiful," he said simply, offering his arm. "Damon's going to lose his mind when he sees you." "He's your brother and co-alpha," Sarah said, taking his arm because her legs weren't steady enough to walk alone. "Isn't this strange for you, sharing a mate?" "We've shared everything since birth." Dante led her through corridors lit with torches, toward the sound of drums and chanting. Same womb, same heartbeat, same soul split into two bodies. Sharing you isn't strange. It's natural. It's right. They emerged into a clearing behind the palace where the entire Shadowridge pack had gathered. Hundreds of wolves formed a circle around a raised stone platform, and at its center stood Damon, looking like a dark prince in ceremonial robes. The full moon hung overhead, fat and silver, casting everything in ethereal light. The drums fell silent as Dante led Sarah to the platform. Every eye was on her, but unlike the silver moon gathering, there was no judgment in these stares. Only curiosity, hope, and something that might have been respect. Damon's expression when he saw her made her breath catch. The cold, calculating mask he usually wore cracked, revealing something raw and hungry underneath. "Sarah," he said, her name a prayer and a promise. "You're stunning." "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely audible over her thundering heart. "Our pack has waited a long time for this night," Damon announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. "For 3 generations, the Blackthorn line has been cursed. Our mates have died. Our heirs have died. We have lived with death as our constant companion, never knowing if we would be the generation to see our bloodline end. But tonight," Dante continued, taking his place on Damon's other side, with Sarah between them, "we begin to break that curse. Tonight we welcome a Luna who was cast aside by wolves, too blind to see her worth. What Silvermoon called cursed, we call blessed. What they deemed worthless, we treasure beyond measure." Sarah's eyes burned with unexpected tears. She'd prepared herself for many things, but not for this. Not to be defended, celebrated, wanted. Sarah Winters. Damon turned to face her fully. Do you accept the position of Luna Queen of Shadow Ridge? Do you swear to protect this pack, to lead with strength and wisdom, to stand with us against any threat? Her throat was too tight to speak, so she nodded. Do you accept our marks? Dante asked, his voice rough. Do you consent to the bond that will tie your life to ours, your fate to ours, your future to ours? This was it. The moment everything changed. Sarah looked between them, Damon with his controlled intensity, Dante with his barely leashed passion, and felt her wolf stir with approval. These weren't like Marcus, with his false promises and shallow love. These were alphas who'd laid everything bare, who'd given her a choice, even when she had none. Yes, she whispered, then louder. I accept. The pack erupted in howls of approval, the sound primal and beautiful. Damon and Dante moved as one, each taking one of her hands. Then we claim you, they said in perfect unison, as ours. Damon struck first, his mouth finding the left side of her neck. His bite was precise, controlled, exactly as deep as it needed to be. The pain was sharp and bright, but beneath it came a flood of sensation, his emotions pouring into her through the forming bond. She felt his fear of failing his pack, his desperate hope that she could save them, his carefully buried loneliness. Before she could process it, Dante bit the right side of her neck, his marking rougher, more passionate. His emotions hit her like a tidal wave, fierce protectiveness, burning desire, a wild joy at finally having someone to call his own. The dual bonds snapped into place, and Sarah gasped as pack bonds flooded her consciousness. Hundreds of wolves, all connected to her now through invisible threads. She felt their curiosity, their cautious optimism, their desperate need for this to work. Then the visions hit. The clearing vanished, replaced by a bedroom drenched in blood. A woman screamed on the bed, her face twisted in agony, her hands clutching a swollen belly. Healers surrounded her, their faces grim, their hands working frantically. But Sarah's attention fixed on the figure in the corner, a shadow that shouldn't exist, darker than the darkness itself, watching with terrible patience. The woman on the bed gave one final, rattling scream. Then silence. Blood pooled beneath her body as a healer lifted a tiny, still form from between her legs. A pup that would never take its first breath. The shadow moved closer, and for just a moment, Sarah saw its face. Beautiful and terrible, with eyes that burned like ice. The vision shifted. Another bedroom, another woman screaming. Different healer, different era, but the same shadow, the same outcome. Death. Always death. Again. Another woman, younger this time, with dark hair and golden eyes. She fought harder, lasted longer, but the shadow was patient. It waited until two infants drew their first breaths. Then Sarah tried to scream a warning, but the vision had already moved forward. The woman's eyes went vacant. The shadow smiled, and in its arms it held two crying babies, Damon and Dante, newborn and innocent, unaware their mother had just been murdered, not dead from childbirth, murdered. The final vision slammed into her with brutal force. She saw herself, her belly swollen with pregnancy, lying in a bed of silk and blood. The shadow approached, and this time she could see its face clearly. Female, ethereal, wearing a crown of twisted silver that looked more like thorns than jewelry. The shadow's hand reached for Sarah's stomach, and she felt a cold that went deeper than bone, deeper than soul. Sarah. Hands shook her shoulders. Sarah, breathe. She snapped back to reality, finding herself on the ground with both twins hovering over her, their faces masks of panic. The pack had surged forward, concerned voices creating a cacophony of sound. Sarah choked on the words, her body shaking violently. I'm okay. You're not okay. Damon's hands moved over her frantically, checking for injury. Your eyes rolled back. You started seizing. What happened? The mark, Dante snarled, his wolf close to the surface. Something went wrong with the bond. We need to get her to the healer. No. Sarah grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. No, it wasn't the bond. It was... She struggled to find words for what she'd seen. Visions. I saw the curse. I saw all of them, all the Luna Queens who died. The twins went very still. What did you see? Damon's voice was carefully neutral, but she felt his fear through the bond. They didn't die in childbirth, Sarah said, her voice shaking. They were murdered. There was a shadow, a figure in every vision, watching them die, waiting for them to die. And in the last vision, I saw. Get her inside. A sharp voice interrupted. Lisa appeared through the crowd, her face pale. Now, before she says something in front of the entire pack that can't be unsaid. Lisa, Dante started. Now. The beta female's command cracked like a whip. Trust me, you don't want her finishing that sentence here. Something in her tone must have convinced them, because both twins moved immediately. Dante scooped Sarah into his arms while Damon addressed the pack, with smooth authority, assuring them their new Luna was simply overwhelmed by the bond and needed rest. They rushed her inside, Lisa leading the way to a small private sitting room, far from curious ears. The moment the door closed, Sarah felt the weight of 3 pairs of eyes on her. Tell us everything, Damon commanded. Every detail. So she did. She described the visions in clinical detail, the women, the shadow, the murders disguised as curse. When she finished, silence hung heavy in the air. That's impossible, Dante said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. A shadow can't kill someone, can't steal breath from infants. It's not impossible if it's not a shadow, Lisa said quietly. All eyes turned to her. She looked older somehow, worn down by a secret she'd carried too long. If it's a person using dark magic to hide their identity. What are you saying? Damon's voice was dangerously soft. Lisa took a breath, then met Sarah's eyes. That shadow you saw, you said it was female, beautiful, with eyes like ice? Yes, Sarah whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. Did you see her crown? Silver, twisted like thorns. I did. Lisa's laugh was bitter, broken. Then I need to tell you something about the twins' mother, about Luna Queen Isadora Blackthorn, who supposedly died 20 years ago, giving birth to her sons. Lisa, don't, Dante warned, but she ignored him. I was 8 years old when she died. I was there in the palace that night. I heard her screaming. Lisa's hands clenched into fists, but I also saw something no one else did. After the healers declared her dead, after they wrapped her body and prepared it for burial, I snuck into the chamber where she lay. I wanted to say goodbye. She'd been kind to me, always kind. And, Sarah prompted when the woman paused, and her body was gone. Lisa said flatly. The window was open. There was blood on the sill, and on the floor. I found a single silver thorn from a crown I'd seen her wear 100 times. The implications crashed over Sarah like a wave. You think she's alive. You think their mother is the one murdering the Luna Queens. I think, Lisa said carefully, looking at the twins' stricken faces, that Isadora Blackthorn didn't die in childbirth. I think she became something else, and I think she's been killing every woman who tries to take her place as Luna Queen of Shadow Ridge. The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. Then Damon spoke, his voice empty of all emotion. Our mother is dead. We saw her body. We buried her. Did you? Lisa challenged. You were newborns. You saw what your father wanted you to see. But I was there, Damon. And I'm telling you, that body you buried might not have been your mother at all. Dante's hand found Sarah's, gripping it tight enough to hurt. Through the bond, she felt his world shattering, all his certainties crumbling to dust. If this is true, Sarah said slowly, voicing what they were all thinking, if your mother is alive and killing the Luna Queens, then the prophecy about me breaking the curse means you're bait. Lissa finished grimly. The twins didn't bring you here to break a curse. They brought you here to lure out a killer. And now that you wear their marks, you're her next target. Sarah's hand moved unconsciously to her swollen belly in the vision, to the cold shadow reaching for her unborn child. She looked at the twins, these powerful alphas who'd promised her protection, who'd offered her purpose, and realized she'd walked willingly into a trap. The question was, had they known, or were they victims of this deadly game, too? Before she could ask, a scream echoed through the palace, then another and another. The four of them ran toward the sound, bursting into the grand hall where pack members had gathered after the ceremony. In the center of the room, floating above the crowd like a nightmare made real, was a figure wreathed in shadow and moonlight. The figure wore a crown of twisted silver thorns, and when she spoke, her voice was beautiful and terrible, like broken glass wrapped in honey. "Hello, my sons," Isadora Blackthorn said, her ice-blue eyes fixed on the twins. "I see you've brought me another lamb to slaughter. How thoughtful." Then her gaze shifted to Sarah, and her smile was the cruelest thing Sarah had ever seen. "Hello, little Luna. Welcome to Shadow Ridge. I do hope you'll last longer than the others, though I doubt it. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The figure of Isadora Blackthorn vanished as quickly as she'd appeared, dissolving into shadow and moonlight, leaving only the echo of her cruel laughter and a room full of terrified wolves. Sarah spent the next 2 days locked in the royal suite, while the twins coordinated security sweeps and magical wards. She felt like a prisoner again. But this time the bars were made of protection instead of punishment. Through the bond, she could sense Damon's calculating fury and Dante's barely controlled rage. Neither came to see her, too busy fortifying the palace against a threat they'd thought was long dead. On the third morning, everything got worse. Lissa burst into Sarah's room without knocking, her face grim. "We have a problem. A delegation from Silvermoon just arrived at the border. They're demanding an audience with the Twin Kings." Sarah's blood went cold. Why would they come here? Because word travels fast in the wolf world. Every pack within 100 miles knows the Twin Alpha Kings just took a Luna Queen. Lissa's expression was unreadable, including your old pack, including your ex-mate. The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. "Marcus is here, at the gates with 5 warriors and Alpha Thorn himself." Lissa moved to the wardrobe, pulling out a formal dress in deep emerald. "The twins want you present for the meeting. You're Luna Queen now. You need to act like it, even if everything's falling apart." 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the throne room wearing emerald silk and a mask of composure she didn't feel. The twins flanked her on either side, seated in matching chairs carved from black stone. They'd positioned a third chair between them, smaller but no less ornate, and when she'd hesitated, Dante had taken her hand and guided her to it with surprising gentleness. "You belong here," he'd whispered. "Don't let them see fear." Now as the massive doors opened and the Silvermoon delegation entered, Sarah was grateful for his words. Because the moment her eyes met Marcus's, every painful memory came flooding back. He looked exactly the same. Sandy hair, blue eyes, that easy smile that had once made her heart race. Now it just made her stomach turn. Alpha Thorn led the group, his weathered face set in harsh lines. The 5 warriors spread out in a semicircle, a show of force that didn't go unnoticed. But it was Marcus who stepped forward, his gaze locked on Sarah with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Sarah," he said, her name dripping with false warmth, "you're looking well. Better than when you fled into the forest like a frightened pup. Watch your tone." Dante's voice was a low growl when addressing our Luna Queen. Marcus's smile widened. "Your Luna Queen? That's actually why we're here." He turned his attention to the twins, his expression shifting to calculated concern. "I'm afraid there's been a terrible mistake. Sarah Winters cannot be your mate because she's still bound to me." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Explain," Damon said, his voice devoid of emotion, "and choose your words carefully." "The rejection ritual," Alpha Thorn interjected, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "When Beta Marcus rejected Sarah during the full moon gathering, she fled before the blood ritual was completed. According to pack law, a rejection isn't valid until both parties bleed together and sever the bond completely." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. "That's not." I felt the bond break, the pain. "Was the initial severing," Marcus interrupted, his tone patronizing. "But the final release requires mutual blood sacrifice. You ran before we could complete it. Technically, Sarah, you're still my mate, still bound to Silvermoon Pack law." "That's convenient." Lissa spoke from her position near the throne, her voice sharp with suspicion. "You wait until after she's been marked by the Twin Kings to suddenly remember this technicality." "We weren't aware she'd been marked," Alpha Thorn said smoothly. "When we heard the news, we consulted our pack archives. The law is clear. An incomplete rejection leaves the original bond dormant, but not destroyed." Damon leaned forward, his golden eyes boring into Marcus. "Even if what you say is true, Sarah now bears our marks. She's bonded to us. Your dormant bond is irrelevant." "Not under the old laws," Marcus countered, and Sarah heard the triumph in his voice. "The old laws state that a wolf can only be marked by new mates after a previous bond is fully severed. If the severance was incomplete, your marks are invalid. Sarah must return to Silvermoon, complete the rejection ritual, and only then can she freely choose new mates." "This is bullshit," Dante snarled, rising from his throne. "You cast her out. You let your pack humiliate her, hunt her, send her into rogue territory to die. Now you want her back?" "I made a mistake." Marcus's voice took on a note of false sincerity that made Sarah want to scream. "I was angry, hurt by the news of her infertility, but I've had time to reflect. She was my mate, my responsibility. I should have stood by her instead of casting her aside. I'm here to make amends, to bring her home." "Home?" Sarah found her voice, though it shook with rage. "You called me worthless, defective. You smiled when they drove me out. I was wrong." Marcus took a step toward the throne, and both twins tensed. "Sarah, please, let me fix this. Come back to Silvermoon. Complete the rejection properly. Then, if you still want to stay here with them, at least it will be your true choice." It sounded reasonable. It sounded almost noble. But Sarah saw the calculation in his eyes, the way his fingers twitched toward her like she was a possession he wanted back. "There's more to this," Damon said quietly, his analytical mind clearly working through possibilities. "You wouldn't risk coming here, risk conflict with Shadowridge, just to reclaim a mate you called barren and cursed. What's the real reason?" A muscle ticked in Marcus's jaw. "Fine. You want honesty? Silvermoon has been struggling since Sarah left. Crops failing, hunts coming up empty, 2 of our best warriors injured in accidents that should have been survivable. The pack elders believe it's because we violated sacred law by casting out an innocent. They say the moon goddess is punishing us. So you want her back to appease your goddess and fix your luck." Dante's laugh was harsh. "You're even more pathetic than I thought. Call it what you want," Alpha Thorn interjected, "but pack law is pack law. If Beta Marcus's claim is valid, Sarah must return to Silvermoon until the rejection is properly completed. Refuse, and you violate the old laws. That's grounds for the Council to strip you of your Alpha status." The threat hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. The Council of Alphas could indeed remove the twins from power if they flagrantly violated ancient pack law. It would mean civil war, pack against pack, all for one Omega female. "There's something you should know," Marcus said, and his smile turned sharp. "Before you make your decision, something that changes everything." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. "A confession from our pack healer, old Margot. She's dying, and apparently her conscience finally caught up with her." He tossed the envelope toward the throne. It landed at Sarah's feet like a grenade. "Read it," Marcus urged. "Go on. I think you'll find it illuminating." With trembling hands, Sarah picked up the envelope. She could feel the twins' attention on her, could sense their confusion through the bond. She broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. The words blurred as her eyes scanned them once, twice, 3 times. Her mind refused to process what she was reading. "What does it say?" Dante asked, his voice tight with concern. Sarah's hands shook so violently the paper rattled. She says." She couldn't form the words, couldn't make them real. "She says she lied," Marcus finished for her, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "The infertility diagnosis was false. Margot was paid, handsomely, to tell you that you were barren, paid by my lover, Rebecca, who wanted you gone so she could take your place as beta female." The room spun. Sarah gripped the arms of her throne, trying to anchor herself to reality. No, that's not. You were fertile all along," Marcus continued, and was that actual regret in his voice, or just another manipulation? Healthy, capable of bearing strong pups. Everything you suffered, everything you lost, it was all based on a lie. Rebecca confessed everything after Margot's letter surfaced. She's been banished from the pack. "You bastard." Dante's voice was lethal. "You come here, you tell her this, and you expect what? Gratitude, forgiveness. I expect justice." Marcus shot back. "I was deceived, too. I rejected my true mate based on false information. The bond between us is still valid because it was severed under false pretenses. Pack law is clear on this as well. A rejection based on lies can be contested." Sarah couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. She'd built her entire identity around being barren, broken, cursed. She'd accepted the twins' offer because she thought she was the prophesied one. And now, "If she's fertile," Alpha Thorn said slowly, his eyes moving to the twins, "then she's not the barren moon-blessed female from your prophecy. which means she can't break your curse, which means she has no valid reason to be your Luna Queen. The implication hit like a thunderclap. Murmurs rippled through the Shatteridge Pack members who'd been allowed to observe the proceedings. Sarah felt their confusion, their doubt, through the pack bonds. Before anyone could respond, the throne room doors burst open again. This time it was Shatteridge Pack elders, 5 ancient wolves who rarely left their chambers. They moved in a tight formation, their faces grim. The eldest, a woman named Callista with white hair and milky eyes, stepped forward. "We've heard the Silver Moon delegation's claims. We've sensed the disturbance in the pack bonds, and we must speak." "Elder Callista," Damon began, but she raised a hand for silence. The prophecy was clear. Only a barren, moon-blessed female could break the Blackthorn curse. If this Omega is fertile, if she can bear children, then she is not the one. The marks you've placed on her are not just invalid under old law, they're dangerous to the pack. "Dangerous?" Sarah whispered. "If you are not the prophesied one." Callista's milky eyes somehow found Sarah's face. "Then the curse remains active. If you bear the Alpha King's children, you will die in childbirth. The pups will die. The cycle will continue. You are not our salvation. You are our doom." The words hit like physical blows. Sarah felt the pack bonds straining, felt the doubt and fear spreading through the assembled wolves like poison. "This is ridiculous," Dante protested. "The prophecy could still—" "The prophecy is what it is," another elder interjected. "Barren moon blessed. If she can bear young, the prophecy is void. She must be removed as Luna Queen immediately, before she conceives and dooms us all." "No." Damon's voice cut through the chaos, cold and absolute. "Sarah stays. We'll consult other seers, find another interpretation." "There is no other interpretation," Callista said sadly. "We're sorry, Alpha Kings, but pack law and prophecy are both clear. She must go." Sarah stood on shaking legs, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on her. Through the bond, she felt Dante's fierce protectiveness, his refusal to let her go. But Damon's emotions were locked down tight, hidden behind walls she couldn't penetrate. "I need air," she managed to say. I can't." She fled the throne room, Lissa close behind her. Behind them, she heard Dante's roar of frustration and Marcus's smooth voice suggesting a private meeting to discuss terms. Sarah ran through corridors that had started to feel like home, past pack members who now looked at her with suspicion instead of hope. She ended up in a small garden courtyard, collapsing onto a stone bench as her whole world crumbled for the second time in a month. "Sarah." Lisa's hand was gentle on her shoulder. "Breathe. Just breathe." It was all a lie. Sarah's voice broke. "The infertility, the curse, everything. What am I even doing here? I'm not special. I'm not prophesied. I'm just a pawn in everyone's games." "You're more than that," Lissa said fiercely. "Prophecy or not, you're—" "What? What am I, Lissa?" "Marcus's discarded mate. The twins' failed solution. I don't even know who I am anymore." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Lissa spoke carefully. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." Sarah looked at her hands, at the skin that bore no marks of the trauma she'd endured. "Maybe I should go back to Silver Moon, complete the rejection properly. At least then I'd be free." "Free to what?" "Go back to a pack that betrayed you, to a mate who threw you away. At least I'd know where I stand." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "Here, I'm just causing problems. The curse is still active. The pack is turning against me. Maybe everyone would be better off if I just left." "The twins wouldn't be better off, wouldn't they?" Sarah met Lisa's eyes. Dante, maybe. But Damon, I can't read him, Lysa. I can't feel what he's feeling. It's like he's blocked me out of the bond completely. Damon processes things differently than Dante. Give him time. But time wasn't something Sarah had. She could feel it. The pack bonds straining, the elders' disapproval, Marcus waiting like a vulture for her to crack. That night, unable to sleep, Sarah wandered the palace halls. She ended up near Damon's private study, drawn by the sound of voices. She knew she shouldn't eavesdrop, knew it was wrong, but something compelled her to stop outside the door. Can't keep hiding the truth from her. That was Lisa, her voice tight with frustration. We're not hiding anything. Damon's cool reply. We're protecting her from information she's not ready to handle. She deserves to know what you're planning. The plan hasn't changed. If anything, today's revelation makes it more viable. Sarah's heart hammered. She pressed closer to the door. You can't be serious, Lisa hissed. You heard what the elders said. If she's fertile and she gets pregnant, the curse only kills during childbirth. Damon interrupted. As long as she doesn't actually give birth, she'll be safe. A long, terrible silence. You want to get her pregnant, Lisa said slowly, horror creeping into her voice. You want to use her fertility as bait to draw out your mother. It's the only way. Isadora won't reveal herself unless she believes she has a target. A pregnant Luna Queen. That's irresistible to her. She'll come out of hiding, and when she does, we'll be ready. And what about Sarah? What happens when your mother tries to kill her? We'll protect her. We have the best warriors, the strongest magic. You're using her, Lisa interrupted. Just like Marcus used her, just like everyone has used her. I thought you were better than this, Damon. I'm doing what's necessary to protect my pack and end this curse once and for all. Sarah knew the risks when she accepted our marks. She accepted your marks thinking she was barren, thinking she was the prophesied one who could break the curse safely. Plans change. We adapt. And Dante? Does your brother know about this plan? Because I'm betting he doesn't. Another silence, longer this time. Dante is too emotionally compromised. Damon finally said, He's fallen for her. Actually fallen. It clouds his judgment. This is why I make the strategic decisions. You heartless bastard. Lisa's voice was full of disgust. She's not a chess piece. She's a person. Your mate. She's a means to an end, and if she's smart, she'll play her part without asking too many questions. Sarah stumbled backward from the door, her vision blurring with tears. She'd heard enough, more than enough. The plan is working perfectly. Soon she'll be carrying our heir, and we can eliminate the real threat. Damon's words echoed in her mind, each one a knife to her heart. She'd been right to be afraid, right to doubt. She wasn't a Luna Queen. She was bait, a sacrifice waiting to happen. And she'd walked into this trap with her eyes wide open, believing she finally mattered to someone. She ran blindly through the corridors, not caring where she went, just needing to escape. She ended up in her bedroom. No, not her bedroom. Their bedroom. The twins' bedroom that they'd given her like a gilded cage, and collapsed against the door. Through the bond, she felt Dante searching for her, worried. But Damon's emotions were still locked away, hidden behind walls of ice and calculation. She was still sitting there, numb and broken, when someone knocked softly on the door hours later. Sarah? Dante's voice rough with concern. Please let me in. We need to talk. But she couldn't face him, couldn't pretend everything was fine when she now knew the truth. She was trapped again. Different cage, different captors, but trapped all the same. And this time, the cost of freedom might be her life. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. Sarah spent the night watching the moon rise through her window, each passing hour bringing it closer to full crimson. The blood moon, the night when the curse traditionally claimed its victims, the night that might claim her if she stayed. She'd made her decision. At dawn, she would leave, not back to Silver Moon, not into the Rogue Lands, but somewhere far away where prophecies and curses and manipulative alphas couldn't touch her. When the knock came at her door just before sunrise, she almost didn't answer. But the voice that called out was Dante's gentle plea. It was Damon's cold command. "Sarah, open this door, or I'll break it down." She yanked it open, fury giving her courage. "Come to check on your bait? Make sure your trap is still set?" Damon's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "Don't." Sarah's voice shook with rage. "I heard you last night, with Lysa, talking about your plan, about getting me pregnant to draw out your mother, about using me as bait to eliminate the real threat." Something flickered across Damon's face. Surprise, then understanding, then what might have been regret. But his voice remained cool. "You heard part of a conversation without context. I heard enough." Sarah moved to push past him, but he caught her arm. Through the bond, she felt something crack in his careful control, a flash of genuine panic. "Let her go." Dante appeared in the hallway, his face thunderous. "Brother, what the hell is she talking about? What plan?" Damon's jaw clenched. "It's complicated." "Then uncomplicate it," Dante snarled. "Now. Because if you've been lying to me, if you've been using her, I've been protecting her." Damon snapped, his control finally fracturing. From Marcus, from the Pack Elders, from the politics that would tear her apart. The plan was never to actually get her pregnant. It was to fake it, to buy time while we found the real killer. Sarah stared at him. "Fake it?" "Lysa knows a witch who specializes in illusion magic. We were going to stage a pregnancy, make Sarah appear to be carrying heirs, to draw out whoever is killing our mates. The elders would accept her as Luna if she was pregnant. Marcus would have no claim, and the killer would reveal themselves trying to strike, while keeping Sarah away from any actual danger." Lysa's voice came from behind Dante. She looked exhausted, guilty. "We would have told you, Sarah, before implementing anything, but we needed to have the plan in place first." "You should have told me from the beginning." Dante's voice was deadly quiet. "I'm your co-alpha, your brother, your equal. Or have you forgotten that? You're emotionally compromised," Damon said flatly. "You've fallen in love with her. I needed to think clearly." "And I haven't?" Sarah interrupted. "You thought I'd just go along with being fake pregnant, with being used as bait, without having any say in my own fate? I thought I could keep you safe while solving our problem." Damon's mask cracked further, revealing the desperation beneath. "I thought if I controlled all the variables, calculated all the risks, I could protect you from what killed all the others. I thought—" "You thought wrong," Dante finished. "You can't control everything, brother, and you can't protect someone by lying to them." Before Damon could respond, a scream tore through the palace. Then another. The sound of shattering glass echoed from the floor below. All four of them ran toward the sound, bursting into the main hall to find pack members scattered in panic. In the center of the room, Lysa fought against a figure wrapped in shadows, the same figure from Sarah's visions, but more substantial now, more real. "Get the Luna to safety," Lissa yelled, ducking under a strike that left black marks in the air. "She's after—" The shadow moved with impossible speed, bypassing Lissa and launching toward Sarah. Dante threw himself between them, taking a blow that sent him crashing into a pillar. Damon's attack came from the side, his claws extended, his wolf partially emerged. The shadow twisted away from his strike, and for just a moment, the darkness fell away, revealing the face beneath. Not Isadora Blackthorne, the twins' mother. A different woman, older, with the same golden eyes as the twins, but harder, colder. She wore the silver-thorned crown from Sarah's vision, and her smile was full of vicious satisfaction. "Hello, nephews," she purred, surprised. "Aunt Morgana," Damon breathed, and Sarah felt his shock ripple through the bond. "You're dead. You died when we were children. Is that what Father told you?" Morgana's laugh was sharp and bitter. "That I died? How convenient. How neat. Much easier than admitting he banished his own sister for the crime of loving him." "What are you talking about?" Dante had recovered, moving to flank her. Blood trickled from his temple, but his focus was absolute. "I loved him," Morgana said simply, as if it explained everything. "Your father, my brother. From the time we were young, I loved him. But he chose mate after mate, filling the palace with their laughter, their bellies swollen with pups that should have been mine." Horror crept down Sarah's spine. "You killed them, all the Luna Queens. Every single one." Morgana's smile widened. "The first was the hardest. Your grandmother, so sweet and trusting. But after her, it became easier. A little dark magic, a curse woven into the bloodline, and childbirth became a death sentence. No heir survived. No mate lived to see her pups grow." "Our mother," Dante's voice broke. "You killed our mother. Isadora was the worst of them all. So beautiful, so perfect. Your father loved her more than the others. When she gave birth to twins, strong, healthy alpha sons, I knew I had to act quickly." Morgana's eyes glittered with madness. "I took everything from her. Her life, her pup's futures, his happiness. And then I waited, watching from the shadows as the curse did its work, generation after generation." "Why?" Sarah found her voice. "What was the point? If you loved him, why cause him so much pain?" "Because if I couldn't have him, no one could." Morgana's face twisted with rage. "And when he died, I turned my attention to my nephews. I had a son, a strong alpha hidden away, raised to take the throne when the twins' line finally failed. All I needed was for the curse to claim one more Luna Queen, one more failure. Then my son would be the rightful heir." "But the prophecy," Damon said slowly, his analytical mind working even in crisis. "The barren moon-blessed female was supposed to be impossible to find," Morgana shrieked. "A female who couldn't bear children but could break a curse. It was a paradox, a riddle with no answer. I created the prophecy myself, fed it to that dying seer, knowing it would send you on an endless, hopeless search." Her eyes fixed on Sarah with hatred. "But then you appeared, actually barren, or so I thought, actually marked, actually threatening my plans. So you revealed yourself to scare her away," Lissa said, pushing herself to her feet. "You appeared at the marking ceremony to make her doubt, to make her leave. It should have worked." Morgana began to circle, her power making the air heavy and hard to breathe. But then that fool Marcus showed up with his confession. Suddenly she's fertile. Suddenly she's not the prophesied one. I should have been pleased. It meant the curse was still active. But these fools didn't send her away. They kept her, fell in love with her. She spat the last words like poison. So now I have to kill her the old-fashioned way. She struck without warning, shadow and magic coalescing into physical form. Sarah barely had time to scream before the twins were there, their wolves emerging fully, fighting with a ferocity born of generations of pain. But Morgana was strong, strengthened by years of dark magic and obsessive hatred. She moved like smoke, striking and retreating, her laughter echoing off the walls as pack members tried and failed to land blows. "You can't win," she taunted. "I've had 20 years to perfect my magic, 20 years to plan. What do you have? A fake Luna who can't even shift? A curse that still holds your bloodline in chains?" Something in her words sparked a memory in Sarah. The visions, the silver-white light, the feeling of power just beyond her reach. In her vision, she'd seen herself pregnant, but there had been something else. A glow around her body, runes marking her skin, power that didn't belong to an Omega. "Sarah, run!" Dante yelled, as Morgana's strike came perilously close. "Get out of here." But Sarah didn't run, couldn't run, because for the first time since the rejection, since the shame, since everything fell apart, her wolf was rising, not cowering or whimpering, but surging forward with a power that took Sarah's breath away. The shift came like an explosion. One moment she was human, the next she was wolf. But not the small brown-furred Omega wolf she'd always been. This wolf was massive, nearly as large as an alpha, with fur that gleamed silver-white like moonlight made solid, and across her body, glowing with ethereal light, ancient runes marked her pelt, symbols of power older than any pack. The entire hall fell silent. "Impossible," Morgana whispered, her face going pale. "A moon oracle, you're a moon oracle." The knowledge flooded Sarah like a dam breaking. Memories that weren't hers, or were they? Being born under a rare celestial alignment. Her real parents, high-ranking wolves from a distant pack, hiding her with a low-ranking couple in Silver Moon. The spell they'd woven to suppress her true nature, to make her appear as a simple Omega, because moon oracles were hunted, coveted, used as weapons. The infertility hadn't been Margot's lie. It had been part of the spell. A side effect of suppressing her oracle nature so completely. And when Marcus rejected her, when her world shattered, the spell had begun to crack. The trauma, the pain, the marking by the twin kings, it had all worked together to shatter the last of her bonds. She was free, finally, completely free, and she was furious. Sarah's oracle wolf moved with grace and power, placing herself between Morgana and the twins. When she spoke, her voice resonated with ancient authority that made even the alphas bow their heads. "Your curse ends here," she declared, the words echoing in every wolf's mind. "Your hatred ends here. Your bloodline's pain ends here." Morgana screamed and attacked, throwing everything she had into one final assault. But Sarah didn't dodge or defend. She simply stood, and as the dark magic struck her, the runes on her body flared with blinding light. The curse, woven through 3 generations, fed by jealousy and dark magic, hit Sarah's oracle power and shattered like glass. She felt it break apart, felt the corrupted bonds heal, felt the weight lift from the Blackthorn bloodline. Morgana's scream turned from rage to agony as her own curse rebounded on her. The dark magic she'd hoarded for decades consumed her from within, aging her rapidly. Within seconds, she collapsed to ash and dust, her silver crown clattering to the marble floor. Silence fell over the hall, broken only by heavy breathing and the crackle of dying magic. Sarah shifted back to human form, finding herself naked and glowing, with residual power. Someone, Lissa, quickly wrapped a cloak around her shoulders. The pack members stared at her with awe and something close to worship. The curse. An elder's voice came from the back of the hall. I can feel it. It's gone. Truly gone. The bonds, another pack member said wonderingly. They're healed, stronger than before. Dante reached Sarah first, pulling her into his arms with a desperation that made her heart ache. You're alive. Gods, you're alive. When she attacked, I thought, I'm okay, Sarah whispered, and realized it was true. For the first time in her life, she was completely, genuinely okay. Damon approached more slowly, his expression unreadable. When he reached her, he dropped to one knee, a gesture of submission no one had ever seen from him before. I'm sorry, he said, his voice raw, for the secrets, for the plans made without your knowledge, for treating you like a strategy instead of a person. He looked up, meeting her eyes. You deserve better. You've always deserved better. Sarah touched his face gently. You were trying to protect me. I understand that now. But Damon, I don't need protection. I need partnership, honesty, trust. You'll have it, Dante swore, still holding her. Both of us. No more secrets, no more plans without you. You're not just our Luna. You're our equal. Our oracle, Damon added, standing. Our mate, our salvation. I'm Sarah, she corrected firmly. Just Sarah. Everything else is secondary. But even as she said it, she felt the full weight of her power settling into place. Moon Oracle, blessed by the goddess herself, able to see and shape destiny, to heal corruption and break curses. The prophecy had been right, just not in the way anyone expected. She was barren, moon-blessed, not because she couldn't conceive, but because her oracle nature gave her the power to choose. She could bear children or not, could shape her own fertility with a thought, could decide her own fate. The elders approached, led by Callista, whose milky eyes somehow saw everything. Luna Queen, she said, bowing deeply, Oracle of the Moon, we ask your forgiveness for doubting you. There's nothing to forgive, Sarah said, finding strength in her voice she'd never known she possessed. You were protecting your pack. I understand that. But from now on, things change. No more judging she-wolves by their ability to bear pups. No more casting out those deemed imperfect. This pack values all its members for who they are, not what they can produce. Agreed, both twins said in unison, their hands finding hers. The pack bonds surged with approval, with hope, with a sense that they stood at the beginning of something new. Over the next hours, as the blood moon set and gave way to dawn, the full truth emerged. Morgana's son was found and exiled. The corruption in the pack bonds was healed completely, and Sarah, standing between her two mates, felt the final pieces of the true mate bond snap into place. Not forced, not faked, but real and right and chosen. 3 days later, Sarah stood at the border of Silvermoon territory, her twins at her back, and half the Shadowridge pack behind them. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here to finish what had started the night they cast her out. Alpha Thorn and Marcus waited at the border, their faces uncertain. They'd heard the rumors, but seeing her, a powerful, marked, radiating oracle authority, was clearly different from imagining it. Sarah, Marcus started, but she raised a hand for silence. I didn't come to rejoin this pack, she said clearly. I came to free anyone who wants to leave, any she-wolf who's been judged, cast aside, or shamed for circumstances beyond her control. You're welcome in Shadowridge. Any wolf who's tired of living under laws that value some lives more than others. Our borders are open. You can't, Alpha Thorn began. I can, Sarah interrupted. I'm a moon oracle, Alpha Thorn, blessed by the goddess herself, and I'm using that blessing to offer sanctuary to any of your pack who want it. By ancient law, you cannot refuse. Silence stretched across the border. Then slowly, wolves began to move. A young she-wolf who'd been deemed too weak. An older male with a limp from an old injury. A female whose mate had died, leaving her unmated and therefore incomplete. One by one, they crossed the border to stand behind Sarah. Not many, perhaps a dozen, but enough. Enough to send a message. Marcus watched them go, his face twisted with something that might have been regret. Sarah. Goodbye, Marcus, she said simply. I hope you find what you're looking for. I finally have. She turned her back on her old pack, on her old life, on everything that had tried to break her. Between Damon and Dante, with her new pack at her back and her oracle power singing in her veins, Sarah walked toward her future. She'd been cast out as worthless. She returned as legendary. She'd been called cursed. She became blessed. She'd been broken. And in breaking, she'd become whole. The rejected Omega was dead. Long live the Oracle Queen. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like, and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily, and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.